Hello and welcome everybody to another unboxing, uncarding of a trading card game called Magic the Gathering, Universes Beyond, The Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth. I unboxed the starter kit and made a video of it, but unfortunately my camera ate it, or I actually transferred it to one of my PCs and I can't find the footage anymore, which is why we're going to go through the decks. There is no unboxing now, but basically just to describe what you would get is you would, for about 15 euros, which is really a very good price. That's what I paid for it, but I think that this is basically the normal price. If you're paying more, then you're being scalped. Having said this, apparently these will never be reprinted. So once they have been sold, they are gone. Anyway, you get two fully viable 60 card decks that are all Lord of the Rings, and you also get a little bit of a information card telling you how to play, basically if you've never played before, how you attack, how you block. The fact that this is upside down is a bit disconcerting, but you're probably going to put it down and, you know, for your opponent to read. You also get a Arena Magic the Gathering token that you can actually that is associated with your deck, so you can go online and actually hand this token in, so you get this deck also as a an online deck that you can play with. You also get this starter kit play guide, which basically explains how Magic the Gathering is played. It tells you a little bit about the different colors. Of course, different colors cater to different play styles. So you've got the red, that's the aggressive player. You've got the where you basically want to be really quick. You have the blue ones. They are a little bit less quick off the mark, but they play the long game. Black seeks power no matter the cost. Green, a great choice for beginners. Green is filled with nature's fiercest creatures. And white gets the job done with teamwork and balance. Here it explains to you what you're going to get. Two 60 card decks, two reference cards each, two deck boxes which you have to build yourself. You can fit all of your cards in there as long as they're not sleeved. So basically, once they're sleeved, it's gone. But I really like the artwork, I really have to say. And this goes for everything. And I'm not going to say it every single time I'm going to look at and show you the cards. The artwork is brilliant. I really love it. But you know, it's really nice. And if you don't sleeve your cards, which you shouldn't, you could actually use these. 4 double-sided tokens, we'll get to those later. Then it actually explains the sample play area. It explains to you how you start the tabletop game, the different parts. You have the library, i.e. the draw pile, you've got your graveyard, i.e. the discard pile, the hand, what you have. And unlike Lorcana, you actually have to discard down to 7 once your turn is over. How tapping and untapping works, how you cast spells, attacking and blocking. The card anatomy, name, cost, power and toughness. So basically so the first value is the attack value, the second value is the defense value, the different types of cards that you can have, lands which you use as mana. So basically, if you're familiar with Lorcana, that would be your ink, only they are separate cards. You don't use your normal cards to ink them and then they go away, but you have discrete cards called lands. Creatures, artifacts, i.e. items, enchantments, which are persistent magical effects. Then sorceries, that are spells that you can cast only during your main phase. So basically the play setup is a little bit different because you go through phases. You ready, you check for effects, and then you draw. So that's the same as in Lorcana. Then you enter your first main phase where you can play cards, where you can play characters, enchantments or sorceries. Then you decide if you want to go into a battle phase. If you do, then you can attack. And during that particular combat phase, you can only play instants spells. But also your opponent can play these on your turn as well. And then once this is done, and once combat has been resolved, you go into your second main phase, in which you can also play a land. So you can only play a land or ink, as it were in Lorcaner terms, once. But you can do it in your first main phase or in your second main phase. Once you're in the second main phase, you can also decide to play creatures as well. Basically, they explain a little bit how this works. So in the first main phase, you can play a land during this phase, but remember that you can only play one land during your turn. You can play any number of cards so long as you have the mana to pay for them. Combat phase and second main phase. Your second main phase is just like your first main phase. You can cast any type of spell and activate abilities. During your combat phase, you can play instants as well, but you can't play, and you can play them anytime, but also on your opponent's phase as well. And then the ending phase, and then I have no idea what this is. But here is lovely artwork. That is Galadriel, probably. And then you've got a glossary scan, which is really important because what you don't get is information on what the terms mean. So, for example, what does it mean if you have reach? Basically also questions and answers. Can my creatures attack my opponent's creatures during combat? No, creatures can only attack players, not other creatures. Creatures deal combat damage to one another only when the defending player uses a creature to block an attacking creature. Again, different from Lorcaner, where you actually attack your opponent's creatures or characters. So, and also one thing that's very important, do I have to tap my creatures to block? No, only an untapped creature may block, and blocking doesn't cause a creature to become tapped. Okay, so there are two, like I said, two decks. One is, if you like, the villain deck. It's the Sauron deck. And then we have like the Goody Two-Shoes deck. Let's start with, and this is random, the villain deck. So first of all, I said that there were going to be tokens in there. Let's zoom in a little. And here we have them, the Orc army. And basically you create these when certain effects happen, and then you have the food item, which is also an artifact. Now you only get one of these cards, but of course these are tokens. So whenever you play a card that would create such a token, you can just basically proxy it. I would actually take those, photocopy them a couple of times, and then stick them behind one of those Lorcaner cards because it's the same size, and then sleeve them so that I have them ready. So basically the Orc army is a 0/0, and then you can give it additional power. The food token, you tap and you sacrifice this artifact, you gain 3 life. Ballistic Boulder is a construct, flying, and then food again. Mountains, so basically this comes with enough land to play. So you have the generic, and I really don't like the fact that they call it basic, because even the basic lands are just beautiful. So you have basic land, mountains, and they're pretty much the same because this is the red deck. So the basic lands are the same, but look at how beautiful they are. And then there is a special land, as it were, and we also have the black lands. That's the swamp. And again, I mean, just look at this. This is so evocative. I mean, yeah, I said I wasn't going to gush over the beauty of the cards, but I can't help it. This is just so evocative. That just screams dead marshes. So you've got the swamps, and you have at least, I want to say, 2 non-generic types of land. You've got the black land, Evolving Wilds. You can tap it and then sacrifice it and search your library for a basic land card. Put it into the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. When winter first begins to bite and stones crack in the frosty night, when pools are black and trees are bare, 'tis evil in the wild to fare. So the Evolving Wilds, again, beautiful. And important, for all we can say many things about Wizards of the Coast, but we can't say that they don't give credit to the artists because the artists are named at the bottom of each card. Oh, I thought we had red ones as well. Am I wrong? Yeah, I am. I thought that there was red special lands as well, but... Or are there? No, they're not. Those are generic lands and then 2 evolving lands. Okay. Mind Stone. That's and I really love this idea of the Mind Stone and even the rendering of it. It's an artifact. You pay 2 generic for it. You tap it and then you add 1 generic mana. Sorry, you tap it to get 1 a generic mana, or you tap it, pay 1, and sacrifice the Mind Stone to draw a card. Ugluk of the White Hand, that's a creature. So whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Ugluk. You don't get counters with this. You will have to make them yourself. Of the White Hand. If that creature was a goblin or orc, put 2 +1/+1 on Ugluk instead. I am Ugluk, I command. I return to Isengard by the shortest road. Mauhur, Uruk Captain. Menace. So here we are now in the realm of what does menace mean. If you want to know, you have to scan the code to get to the glossary. An orc soldier. And of course, up here you have the mana cost. So the Foray of Orcs costs 3 of any color +1 red. It's a sorcery. And we have learned that you can play sorceries only during the main phase of your turn. We've got this twice. Grishnak. Okay, so when this one enters, you want to amass the soldiers, and I don't know what that actually means. Amass orc. I believe it's you create an orc army token, but you would have to check if it actually explains how this works. Probably not. Yeah. You would have to check what this actually means because it's not written on the card. Goblin Fire Leaper, cheap one for 1/1. Fire of Orthanc, sorcery, destroy target artifact or land. Creatures without flying can't block this turn. It's quite powerful. Cast into the fire. Instant, choose 1. Cast into the fire, deals 1 damage to each of up to 2 target creatures or exile a target artifact. Oliphant, it's a creature with trample. So trample is one of the keywords that I actually know. When you do damage, it says in the beginning, and I read this out to you, that you don't attack your opponent's creatures. You attack your opponent, and your opponent can choose to use their own creatures to block that assault. If they so choose and they use a creature to block your assault, you compare the attack and the attack power, so in this case 6, to the opponent's blocking. And if, let's say, this 6/4 attacks another 6/4, it 2 would go through because it has 6 attack and the other one has 4 defense. So 2 damage remains. If a creature has trample, this goes against the life points of your opponent, and your opponent, as like with the same by the same token as you, starts with 20 life points. And yes, you're trying to drain your opponent's life points. Creature again, Olog High Crusher, again trample. This one is interesting because it can't block, but it can attack for 4. It can only block if you control a goblin or orc. Same here. He's a troll. They've got a cave troll. Swarming of Moria, sorcery. Create a treasure token. It's an artifact with tap and sacrifice this artifact. Add 1 mana of any color. Voracious Fellbeast. I really love the art again. I mean, the art is just, I mean, it's just so evocative. This is like this, these guys just, you know, swarming the mines. It's so evocative. And you've got a flying creature here. Drake Beast. Only flying creatures can attack this, can block. Gothmog Morgul Lieutenant. He's a human soldier. When Gothmog Morgul Lieutenant enters a battlefield, amass Orcs 1. Creature tokens you control have Death Touch. So basically, Death Touch means that if you do damage, even just 1 point, you kill your opponent's creature. Nasty End, it's an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature. So you pay 1 generic and 1 black mana plus you sacrifice a creature. And then you draw 2 cards, and if the sacrificed creature was legendary, draw 3 cards instead. That's, yeah, and you have to basically sacrifice one of your own creatures. Shelob's Ambush, and this card is incredible. I'm just going to bring this up a little more. Like so, because it's a bit difficult to tell. So basically here you've got the Stinger, and this is a Hobbit. Target creature gets +1/+2 and gains Death Touch until the end of the turn. Create a food token. It's an artifact with pay 2 mana, tap and sacrifice this artifact. You gain 3 life. Snarling Warg. Menace. This creature can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. Did we have Menace before? Yeah, and here it's not explained what Menace means, but it's explained on this card. This creature can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. As long as you control a goblin or orc, Snarling Warg gets +1/+0, so then it's at 4/4. Mordor Trebuchet, it's an artifact. Creature wall defender. When you attack with 1 or more goblins and or orcs, create a 2/1 colorless construct artifact. Creature token with flying named Ballistic Boulder that's tapped and attacking. Sacrifice that token at the end of the combat. So it would be this token, and it does 2/1. So you basically play this, and if you then attack with, and it's basically standing there because it's an artifact creature, so it's just basically on the board. And when you attack with a goblin and or orc, you can then create this flying boulder. We've got this twice. Dunland, Crabine from Dunland, flying creature, bird horror. When Dunland Crabine enters the battlefield, amass Orcs 2, put 2/1/1 counters, and if you don't have this orc army creature, create it first. And it's cheap. Well, it's not that cheap, it's actually 3. Feed the Swarm. Sorcery, destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. You lose life equal to that permanent's mana value. That's an interesting one. We have found many of your folk lying slain as they fled thither. Easterling Vanguard. When Easterling Vanguard dies, amass Orcs +1. An army of Easterlings charged forth, while from the hills poured Orcs innumerable. And again, the artwork is incredible. Goblin Assailant. 2/2. The fighting waxed furious on the fields of the Pelennor, and the din of arms rose upon high, with the crying of men and the neighing of horses. But the hosts of Mordor were enheartened, and filled with a new fury they came yelling to the onset. Got this twice, 3 times. The Balrog, flame of Udun, you shall not pass. An evil of the ancient world, both a shadow and a flame. Trample. Now again, when you don't block this, 7 will go through. Even if you do block it, the remainder will go through. When a legendary creature an opponent controls dies, put the Balrog, flame of Udun, on the bottom of its owner's library. Legendary enchantment, Fires of Mount Doom. When Fires of Mount Doom enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to target creature an opponent controls. Destroy all equipment attached to that creature. So that's not actually attacking them. They can't block, they just take the damage. You pay 2 red and you exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. When you play a card this way, Fires of Mount Doom deals 2 damage to each player. Player, not creature. Witch King, bringer of ruin. No living man may hinder me. And here's Eowyn. Flying. Whenever Witch King, bringer of ruin attacks, defending player sacrifices a creature with the least power among creatures they control. But of course, it's expensive. 4 generic plus 2 black. Gollum, scheming guide. Legendary creature, halfling horror. Whenever Gollum's scheming guide attacks, look at the top 2 cards of your library and put them back in any order, then choose land or non-land. So how this works is I look at the top 2 cards and I check them, I don't show them. Then I put them down in any order, and then I will either say land or I will say non-land. Then my opponent gets to say either land or non-land. Then I draw my card. If they said land and I've got a land card, then Gollum leaves play. If they said land and it's a non-land, basically he cannot be blocked. And I draw a card, namely the card that I just drew. And then we've got Sauron, the lidless eye, legendary creature, avatar horror. 3 generic, 1 black, 1 red. When Sauron the Lidless Eye enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature an opponent controls until the end of the turn. Untap it, it gains haste until the end of turn. What happens is you go in, you take their creature, you put it down on your side of the battlefield, you untap it, and you can use it to attack, for example. You pay 1 generic, 1 black, and 1 red. Creature you control gets +2/+0 until the end of turn. Each opponent loses 2 life. Again, opponent, not creature. There is an eye in the tower that does not sleep. So that's this deck. That's the baddies. And now we've got the goody 2-shoes. And again, comes with the information card. And then we've got the food artifact. And on the reverse, you've got a human soldier. And again, food and treasure. We start out with the lands, so normal plains with sheep. With sheep, that's important, and a terrace. That's the, of course, that's the Shire. So this is a completely white deck, so they're all monosphere. Sorry, what am I saying? They're white and green. Then we've got the forest, and again, please look at these. They are just, I mean, this is the old forest. That's not the forest that you want to walk in, and that's the forest of Lothlorien. Very different. So, and then we've got a non-generic land, and that's, oh, it's really interesting because we do have more here. Greypelt Refuge and the Shire Terrace. So it's interesting because here we only had 1 non-generic land. I'm wondering, am I missing cards? That would be not awesome. Let me just count them right quick. No, I'm not missing any cards. Oh, I get it. Here I got 2 and 2, didn't I? Yeah. Here I got 4 times the same one. Which is neither color. Okay, all good. Here they just gave me 2 separate types. The Grey-Pelt Refuge enters the battlefield tapped. When Grey-Pelt Refuge enters the battlefield, you gain +1 life. And you tap it and you add either a green one or a white one. And if you tap this, you add 1 generic. You pay 1, you tap, and then you sacrifice the Shire Terrace. Search your library for basic land. Okay, so here we've got Butterbur Bree Innkeeper. So this is now the Hobbit, the Good Fellows. Butterbur Bree Innkeeper, human peasant. He looks very young, so this is actually off the mark because Butterbur is actually in his 60s. Stew the Coonies. Stew the rabbits, squeal Gollum in dismay. Spoil beautiful meat, Smeagol saved for you. Poor hungry Smeagol, what for? I hope you'll be comfortable. You'll be wanting supper, I don't doubt. As soon as it may be. This way now. Target creature, basically, so this is a spell. Instant. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Create a food token. So you could play this even on your own turn or on your opponent's turn at any time. Even during combat. Whereas a sorcery can only be played during your own main phase. Peregrine Took, Halfling Citizen. He creates additional food. Meriadoc Brandy Book. Whenever 1 or more halflings you control attack a player, create a food token. Galadrim Bow. When Galadrim Bow enters the battlefield, attach it to a target creature you control and tap that creature. And then they get additional attack and many partings. You search for land cards. That's good if you don't have any, because then you can't really, it's 1 land and then you can get additional ones. Generous Ent. Reach. So he can defend against flying. Bag End Porter, it's a dwarf. Okay. He gets buffed by legendary creatures you control. Woes Pathfinder. Add 1 mana of any color if you tap her. Mushroom Watchdogs. Grip, Fang, sacrifice a food, put a +++1/+1 counter on mushroom, watchdogs. It gains vigilance until the end of turn, activate only as a sorcery. You cannot pass. Instant. Destroy target creature that blocked or was blocked by a legendary creature this turn. Landroval, Horizon Witness. So he's flying as well. So you have flying creatures in both decks. So it means you can actually use the decks against each other. Whenever 2 or more creatures you control attack a player, target attacking creature without flying gains flying until the end of turn. Whenever 2 or more creatures you control attack a player, target attacking creature without flying gains flying until the end of turn. Okay, does this mean basically just when he's in play, a target, you just choose any of your creatures and they gain fly when they attack? Enchantment, Banishing Light. When Banishing Light enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent on opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. I've got it twice. An enchantment, Stay. Rosie Cotton of South Lane. She creates food when she enters. And whenever I create a food token when she's on my battlefield, I get a +1/+1 to any creature that I choose except her. Second breakfast, up to 2 target creatures each get +2/+1. So you could use this to buff one of your own creatures when you get attacked. Or when you attack. Dunedain Blade. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. And you have to pay for it when you attach it to someone. Protector of Gondor, human soldier. When Protector of Gondor enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. East Farthing Farmer, halfling peasant. Create food tokens when they enter. East Mark Cavalier. Whenever Eastmark Cavalier deals damage to a goblin or orc, destroy that creature. So that's like, it's like Death Touch, but just for a particular type of creature. Westfold Rider, Human Knight. Sacrifice Westfold Rider, destroy target artifact or enchantment, activate only as a sorcery. So only during the main phase. Knight of the Keep, 3/2. 3 times. Bilbo's Ring. As long as it's your turn, equipped creature has hexproof and can't be blocked, whatever hexproof is. It can't be probably ensorcelled. Whenever equipped creature attacks alone, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Galadriel, Gift Giver. Legendary creature, Elf Noble. And she has different things she can do when she enters or when she attacks. Gandalf the White. Vigilance, whenever you cast a spell, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Scry 1. So, now this is important. Whenever you cast a spell, anything that you do in Magic the Gathering, or almost anything, is casting a spell. You play a creature and pay mana for it, that's casting a spell. You play an enchantment, that's casting a spell. Because the idea behind it is you and your opponent play sorcerers, and you just basically conjure things. You conjure artifacts, you conjure creatures, you conjure enchantments, sorceries, instants. So whenever you create something, whenever you play a card that's, I believe, not a land, because I don't think that land counts as spell, he would get this. Frodo, Determined Hero. Whenever he enters the battlefield or attacks, you may attach target equipment you control with mana value 2 or 3 to Frodo. So basically we could give him Bilbo's ring, because it's equipment and it is 3. So you could give it to him and you don't have to pay for the equipment. And lastly, we have Aragorn and Arwen wed. That's the super special foil card. And it's a legendary creature, human elf noble. So it's basically the 2 rolled into 1. Whenever Aragorn and Arwen wed enters the battlefield or attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. So it's super powerful. They cost 4+1/+1. You gain 1 life for each other creature you control. Aragorn, the king Elessar, wedded Arwen Undomiel, and the tale of their long waiting and labors came to fulfillment. 3/6. And that is the unboxing or re-unboxing of these 2 starter kits. I've been watching several unboxings recently, and it seems that these Beyond the Multiverse thingies are really limited editions. So once they have been sold, they have been sold. And they will not be reprinted. So if you are interested in playing Magic the Gathering and playing Lord of the Rings themed stuff, then I believe you should get your stuff now, because it's probably never going to be reprinted. And I can recommend it because in spite of everything, MtG is an interesting game. And if you like Lord of the Rings, then you really get this theme, and you get the art, which is really evocative and which really makes sense. If you're going to play tournaments, apparently these decks cannot be used because they are not part of, I don't know, maybe the general line. But of course it doesn't mean that you can't have fun with your friends, or that if you have a local game store, they may actually have limited time leagues where you can go and say, well, I'm going to play this. I would also find it a bit weird if I chose these ones and somebody else chose, let's say, the Doctor Who version of the Beyond the Multiverse. You could, in theory, clash and play, but I would find it very unimmersive. So to me, it's important to stick with the theme, but again, that's my preference. So that's all from me. There will be more because I've got a couple of boosters coming my way, because I don't just want to have these 60 cards, but I want to expand a little. And hopefully they will be there next week, and then we will see what we will see. Talk to you soon. Bye.